Good morning, friends. It is I again. That fellow you see on the internet so frequently. What's his name again? Roast Parrot? No, that's not it. My name's actually Host Eric. I host a television program here on the internet known as Talking with Famous People. It's kind of like a cross between Ellen, Dr. Phil, MacGyver, the A-Team, Sequest, Stargate SG-1, and Days of Our Lives. If you want to understand what Talking with Famous People was. Now, there's no reason for us to lie, to beat around the bush, to play Pennywinkle at the Decepticon conference, okay? We don't need to spend our time doing that. So what am I meaning specifically here? What I mean is, Eric, why are you really live streaming? You have a secret hidden agenda, don't you? I do. I have a secret hidden agenda. It was to lure Klupin into my trap and convince him to say, wow. You may say, even if you do any or all of those things. So, I have to feed this cat who's meowing at me, annoyingly. That's the sort of thing that you'll hear presented as basically fake mysticism or whatever. You know, maybe you need to spend little less time as a human doing and more time as a human being. You know, are you killing time? Or is time really killing you? Think about it. It's the way of the Tao. Man, you were just about to go to sleep. Well, see, that's my basic problem here. So, this person from God knows where booked a typing session with me for 5:30 p.m. this upcoming day. But I knew he wasn't putting in my time session. I could just tell. So I was like, okay, I'll put it down for my time tomorrow, 5:30. But if there's a time zone issue, move it to where you want it on the calendar. I'll approve the time change. Well, he moved it to fucking 3:30 in the morning. So it's like it's too late for me to go to bed for any period of time and still be awake at 3:30 in the morning. So, like if I were gonna, my plan was, not that I ever follow through on my plans, but my plan was go to bed around 10, get 4 hours of sleep, get up, wake up enough, be ready to go for the typing session. Everything's gravy, right? So, here I am as a consequence, live streaming. I guess I was perhaps a little bored, or I'd run out of whatever I was entertaining myself with. What was I entertaining myself with? What was I doing? Oh, I remember what I was doing. I was playing around with this beat I made. Let's see if it comes through the headphones. Headphones, mister. Headphones. Try coming through the headphones, why don't you? There we go. What we need is a party in here with a lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. An atmosphere that's plush and lush. No serious stuff. What we need is a party in here with a lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. House filled with fluff. No serious stuff. What we need is a party in here. What we need is a party in here. I think we can all agree what we need is a party in here with lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. We need an atmosphere all filled with fluff. I don't want no serious stuff. What we need is a party in here with lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. I want the house all bouncing with fluff. I want enough of the stuff to blow the roof off the stuff. 'Cause I'm quite convinced it's been too long for all of us since we had a party that went off like this. It's, you know, the kind where the house is filled with fluff till there's enough of the stuff to blow the roof off the house on the top. And that is the why I want to say hi. But what we need is a party in here with a lot of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Fill the house up all with fluff, 'cause I don't want no serious stuff. What we need is a party in here with lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Yeah. But I'll just take the drugs if I can only have one. What we need is a party in here with lots of drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs. And what we need is a party in here. I want lots of drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs. I'm a little bit fiendy, dear. I think I'm gonna have a party in here in my head with these drugs. And I'm gonna put them into my nose and my lungs. And I'm gonna say, whoa, 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 yo. That's what I'm talking about. It's a party, no doubt. It's a party, all full of drugs. My favorite kind of party. Hugs, everybody. That was fun. That was funny. It is true that what we need is a party in here. You know, I don't think anybody can dispute that. With dancing, girls, drugs, music, and beer. Nothing but fluff. I don't want no serious stuff. Yeah. Isn't that a funny chorus? That it's like a teenager wrote it. Well, you know, that's what I feel. It's like I'm not trying to be cool when I write those lyrics. That's what I actually feel, you know. It's like, what we really need is a party in here with dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Just nothing but fluff. No serious stuff. That's what I actually feel. So, you know. Thanks, Gloopin. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, everybody. You guys are very sweet. So guess what? No, I'm not ready to leave my house. It's not like I got a strike or anything, but guess who fucking copyrighted me? Jason Blood. So I cut out that segment. Like, bro, I said to you, as I was playing the video you linked here, don't copyright me, bro. Don't copyright me. Fucking guy. What's up with that, you know? Thanks, Winston's mom. That's really nice of you to say. I am fond of the way that beat came out. It's made of a mix of me and Rachel's piano doodlings, and then that other thing is it's just me going ball, 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 ball. But I affected it a lot and gated it so it sounds more like scratching, like DJ scratching or something. I also pitch shifted it down. Yeah, it was automatic. Because the thing is, in his drone video, he uses copyrighted music. So that's what it really copyrighted me on. He must have, like, I don't know, bought the rights to it, or he doesn't care about... He's probably not monetized. His videos aren't monetized, so it doesn't matter to him, right? You know? It's like my shorts videos aren't monetized either, because it's not 1,000 subs yet. But I bet you I'm going to get to 1,000 subs with that short channel in 2 months at most. So I already got 120 something. And it's been 2 weeks maybe since I started putting shit up there. I've already got like 70,000 views on the channel. So... And it's an interesting art form. It's a very specific art form. You know, like, you can do lots of different things with it if you really wanted to be meticulous with it. It's okay. It wasn't that kind of copyright thing. It wasn't a strike or anything. It was just saying, you have to give any money this video makes to the owner of that song, and then it gives you the option to cut out the segment if you want. So it wasn't the kind that got like CJ in trouble. If it's just music, most music will let you play it if you give them the money. But of course, you can only really play one song because you can only really give one person the money. And some people are assholes about it, you know. So I don't like to take the chance because, like, if you play like a Metallica song or something, you'll probably get a strike. Although I'm not sure. They've got it set up a lot better now than they used to. You know, you gotta really be brazen violator of community standards and shit to get a strike, I think. Yeah, but covers are copyrighted in a slightly different way than the original. Like, it says specifically, we've identified that you played a cover of this song in your stream. Now, if I were to play a Billy Joel song, Billy Joel is pretty copyrighty, so that would probably get yanked down completely, immediately. Like, if I were to put on a Billy Joel song right now, probably the stream would die, okay? But, if I'm to cover a Billy Joel song, Billy Joel gets the money from it, but he can't stop me from doing that. So, you do get to play covers, and you may have to give the songwriter the money, but that's fine. But at least it won't give you any kind. It's not a strike at all. You can't get any kind of negative thing from covers. All right. I mean, the thing is, let's say you're let's say you're Billy Joel and you want to make sure you maximize your earning potential. Well, you're going to make sure that nobody can play your songs on the radio or their YouTube channel or any other medium without paying you some kind of royalty and without you agreeing to it first, because you're going to be super kind of dickish about it. And then you're going to be sure that if somebody's like a Billy Joel cover band and they're broadcasting in any way rather than playing, say, in a live venue, that he's going to get a piece of that too as the songwriter. And I'm sure he'd tell you that he should get it when the cover band plays it in the bar too, but it's such chump change and so non-automatable and so difficult to enforce that he doesn't bother, you know. You'd have to go to a shit ton of like shows of general cover bands and see if they play a Billy Joel song, you know. So I do recognize that today's typing elicited some skepticism from people. I feel pretty confident about it, though. I don't know. I can see why people are skeptical. She doesn't. I mean, well, one thing I would note is throughout the typing, everybody in the chat was hypothesizing that she was an introvert. But she didn't self-identify as an introvert, you know? And none of her objections were, I don't think I'm an extrovert or anything of the sort. None of her objections were inconsistent with ESTP. They were consistent with a misunderstanding of ENTJ. So, I mean, I get it that if you're typing on NI primarily and not really relying on the data, then you might not think her an ESTP because maybe her affect's a little more reserved, a little less assertive or something. But I mean the test results were quite consistent across the board. The only thing that was a little iffy to pin down was the FE. So it's like, you know, I respect NI a lot, and a lot of times it proves to be right. You know, like I trust Rachel's NI a lot at this point. If I'm thinking something and she says, I don't know, my gut just says, yeah, it makes me really go, okay, let me revisit this ground and make sure I'm where I should be, because I know from plenty of past experience, when I listen to Rachel's NI, thumbs up. When I don't, thumbs down. So, she's just too brisk with the TI to be an INFJ. I just don't buy that that's third slot TI. And also, she's not TE polar. And her SI is better than 8th slot. So, I mean, any could be 8th or 5th, maybe. That's a little harder to tell apart, I guess. But, FI could be 6th or 7th. That's a little harder to tell apart, but I mean, I just don't see TI third. I don't see TE polar. So she seems NI conscious, not SI conscious. She's no ENFJ, or she's not SI polar. She's no ISTP because she's not NE polar. What else is she? You know. The thing is, she's an interesting case study because she gave a couple of, or at least one, clear SI correlate answer that I think was very misleading. And she was talking about how much sleep she needed a night and how she got it. 8 hours. Doesn't want a nap, wants it all in one chunk. That kind of clarity about how much sleep you want and that large of a number is not normally consistent with the STP. So there's an example of like a self-reporting answer that goes, this is kind of a red flag, but I did a lot of SI testing with her, and in every other regard she came out NI, not SI. I mean, I'm open to being wrong, but if I'm wrong, then it would be because I didn't test TE enough. She is TE polar, and she just got super slam in third slot TI. But she didn't talk like a knower interfacer, you know? She talked like an action deliberator. People telling her, you should have discussed this more, or whatever. That's action deliberator kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, I find it very difficult to make the argument for anything else, you know? So, in that regard, I had no choice but to type her ESTP regardless of what anyone's intuition says, you know, including my own. Not that I intuited that she wasn't an ESTP, but I mean, obviously I too intuited that she was different than Mackenzie, different than Delilah to some extent, you know. And she was particularly bright. She also did well on the straight up any skills tests, but she's not first or second slot skill any. I mean, she's not a dominant or tool any user. Because regardless of how well she did on, say, an Inky Pinky test or synonyms for this, or can you make a rhyming line for this? All of those efforts on her part were clearly like, here's the NE I need to provide you to get the answer to you. There was no I mean, like when you look at her, how she ended the story about the peacock, right? I guess there's a little, what you might call a little playfulness to it, in the sense that she has the manager have a monkey. It's not exactly clear how the monkey fits into the story, but basically, she does what most people who aren't any one or two do with these stories. They solve the problem. They resolve it one way or another, right? almost everyone resolves it positively. I mean, I could just tell you right now, I don't have a whole lot of them. ENTPs tend to be tall and skinny. Um, ENFJs tend to be heavy set, round face, big NFJ eyes. INFJs are like a toned down version of ENFJs in terms of the physicalities. ENTPs have laughing eyes, mischievous eyes. If you look at my eyes, although because I'm older, they're a little less gleamy, maybe. But look at my eyes. You look at Aga's eyes. You look at Lauren's eyes. We all have this same, like, yeah, you know. I had a friend back in high school, INFJ friend Jack, tell me I had laughing eyes. Well, there's that quality. Other than that, I would just say physicalities among the different beta quadrotypes are easy to confuse with one another and can be mirrored or show up in INTJs as well. So you got to watch out for that apparent beta quadra thing. It can pop up in INTJs, ENTJs. I think it's an NI thing. I'm not sure. But, like, the problem with using any of those kind of things is, even if I'm saying that to you, it's like what I'm picturing or mean by that, and what you interpret may be totally different things. When I say a round face, when you see someone's face, you may say, well, that face appears round to me, therefore maybe that's a QE's beta quadra, whomever, you know. But I might look at that same face and say, oh, no, that's not what I meant by a round face, you know. This is part of the problem with physical shit. Also, it's just not reliable. I have encountered people who don't fit that stereotype, you know. According to your mother, your eyes are evil? Well, at least the evil's concentrated in two relatively small balls. You know. It's true. I'm happy to forward people's emails and stuff if they want. So, it's now 1:07. I have 2 hours and 23 minutes until my typing session. 2 hours and 23 minutes. It's a long time to wait for a typing session to start. I'm in a fortunate moment of, I guess what you'd call, retreat from Sleepy Week. This happens every month. I run out have a few days of honest, hardcore sleepy week where I'm actually sleeping my ass off, right? And then I go, hey Delilah, how's it going? Yeah, it's like when I called her up yesterday, the day before, whenever it was, I'm like, how are you? And she's like, well, I just got back from the doctor and they did an ultrasound. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And she says, it's not anything new. At some point in my medical history, they noted that I had a cyst on one of my ovaries, and they periodically check it to see if it's growing any bigger or whatever. If there's, and I'm like, oh well, that sucks. Hopefully it will be fine because I'd like you to make a grandchild for me, you know. And she's like, yeah. And I said, you know, this really makes my my reason for calling seem kind of callow. The word? I think that's a word. It's not. There's not. I'm not just mixing callous and shallow. I think callow is a separate word. Could be wrong though. Callous and shallow. But can I hit you up for speed? We're done talking about your ovaries, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. You got speed? You holding? Is this too quick a transition? No. Cool. Right. You're F5 polar too. Great. Fantastic. She just thought it was funny. I love making her laugh. When I make a joke that makes her laugh, it warms my soul. She's got such a delightful, honest, hearty laugh when something funny, when she actually finds something funny. It makes me want to gently jostle the tenderness within the collective unconscious. A tenderness called love. Love. True love. Well, I don't think of myself as especially smirky. I don't know. Is my smile smirky? What makes something a smirk? You know, like if I'm smiling with laughing eyes, is it smirking? But if I'm smiling with regular eyes, is it not smirking? Like, is this smirking? Is that smirking? Or is that just smiling? Because I think at least some of the time, I may be confusing smirking with twerking. I'm pretty sure that twerking is the one that leaves me with the smell of Miley Cyrus's ass all over the place. I'm glad New Groove agrees with me. She's somewhat controversial, but you know, I would say one piece of data that would land in the extrovert column, not that it's definitive or anything, is that it seemed from the outset she wanted to publish, planned to publish regardless of what happened, and that's kind of an ESTP ENTP move, you know. I smirk at people who troll me. Those who troll with less logic and make obvious errors. Otherwise, you smile a bit innocently. Better than confusing smirking for jerking. Real photo killer, right? Generally, it's comparatively safe to lurk, but yeah, jerking and twerking both have ruined so many of my family photos I can't even count. So it's like, after this typing tonight, I might still have a little bit of energy left because I got a good burst, and you know that good burst where you get a good burst, and then the next day you do one more pill, maybe or two more. In this case, just one more, and it gets adequately in your bloodstream. It can last for a good stretch of time. So I may even still be. It's possible feeling up after this. After this. Typing session, these typing sessions do tend to leave me feeling kind of energized. It is an interesting puzzle, quite quite challenging. You know, it's like sometimes there are zero compromises at all that need to be made. In other words, somebody's textbook in their testings and textbook in their affect. Sometimes I have smudges in my workbook on one or both columns, you know? I mean, they're discounted already. I'm keeping the price at $65. It's a fair price and not that very expensive, and um, it's kind of like permanent sale, I guess. It feels accessible, but still worth my time. Taylor is an 8. I mean, look, I get why, too, Boba Fett. I know, Boba Fett, you don't like mixing a Negrum in to explain differences, but the fact is, we've got a straightforward enough problem in typology and a straightforward enough solution. The problem is people may type the same in terms of testing, skills, correlates, values, whatever, but appear different in affect. At least Enneagram provides a reasonable explanation for that, and while it may seem like a bit of a cop-out, as long as we're only justifying differences in affect and not differences in test results, it seems like the best of no perfect solutions. Is it really effective to get everyone to say cheese for a photo? Well, I always resented being told to smile in photos, so I frequently didn't smile, or I'd smile weird or something. And I also think it's generally ill-advised to try to pose pictures of people smiling. Just take actual photos of things happening. Don't pose shit like that. It's dumb. That's what I think. But remember, I'm not always right. You've got to duck. Are you approaching a low doorway? That would explain the need to duck, I guess. Oh, you mean you've got to bail. You gotta scram. You gotta make like a mushroom and get the shiitake out of here. You gotta make like a turducken and go away. Has Joyce ever published any of her typings? I do not know. I feel bad about Joyce. I was an asshole. I wasn't moist. I don't know why it did not cross my mind to think of how that woman would feel when she heard my harsh, unkind, direct, albeit honest words. I could have put things nicely or left some things unsaid. Instead, I've got guilt about Joyce Mang rolling in my head. I mean, the takeaway from an iMoxie is it seems to line up directly with SI, such that SI1 is probably best at it. ISFJ. I don't really have many ESFJs, ESTJs, or ISTJs to check against. So, one ESTJ reported that she wasn't good at it, but she's notorious for getting test results that contradict her type because she doesn't like being an ESTJ. So, I don't know what to make of what she's saying, and she's, I don't know. Anyway, by and large, I discovered that INTPs do well at it, but not extraordinarily well at it, and that the 3-sentence one is beyond them by and large, as it is just about everybody. That the ISFJs could do it with some practice. My hypothesis remains that top, it basically goes, 1, 2, probably just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not sure, but the point is that I don't know how much that links to FETI versus TEFI. That may not be the case when you mix in the TEFI, because I just don't have enough people commenting that are ISTJs, ESTJs, or even ESFJs, really. So I don't have that much data. But I think it's a good question regardless. I mean, the thing is, for any kind of new question or new, like, whatever I want to bring into the mix, I've got to run it past a bunch of people before I know anything about it, right? There's this dude, what's his name? I can't ask wipe, what's his name? Something touchdown? I don't know. Anyway, and he's like one of those super nasty haters, does the kind of strategies and the shit that I just fucking hate so much, like says things like, well, there goes another Eric test, shot to hell in one try, or something like that. He's just trying to be as dismissive of everything that I do as possible, right? So, anyway, I deleted his comments, but, point is, of course, I don't know. I won't know until I actually test a lot of people with it in typing sessions. It's like, I'll probably start with one sentence. To get that right, I'll probably proceed to try to do the same one sentence plus a second sentence that's a rephrasing of it and see if they can do that. Then maybe try two totally distinct and two new sentences that they've not heard before. See how revelatory it is. But like all these things, the nice thing about SI and NI is I feel like I've got a lot of different ways to test them, and I check a lot of different angles of approach to that helps me to narrow down the slot more than I can for other functions. Those two epistemology functions seem the easiest ones for. I just need to use it in typing sessions and find out, And that's the thing about when people suggest you should do this in typing sessions, you should do that. What they don't understand is, even if it's a good idea, I won't know for sure that it's a good idea until I've tried it a bunch, which means it's taking the place of something else that I currently find informative. I mean, I check for SI with all sorts of shit. Like, anytime I'm asking you to give specific examples of things, I'm asking SI. When I'm asking the question about the potato touch, I'm checking specifically to see if it's 8th slot versus, say, 7th. Or usually to confirm that it's 8th slot. But it's informative for other types as well. So, what seems to test out pretty consistently is that people have trouble coming up with an example of a time when they 8th slotted when they should have 1st slotted. It's like, basically you never do that. You never interpret it that way, you know? Right, so another way to test SI that's not memory related per se is on the, well, that's why they say miggity miggity meow. Well, no, there's a lot of angles to it, Boba Fett. I'll go through some of them. Like, I'm front stack SI, but I'm not at all regular. So the thing is, that's why they say miggity miggity meow. NI people will go higher up on universality. SI people will go lower down on universality. So if a person says, well, that's why they always say you shouldn't listen to Judy, that's an SI style answer. But probably not 8th or 7th slot, you know? Right, but the thing is, the point is that the challenge that we have with SI, 4th slot, quote unquote, weak versus 1st slot, is that naturally SI is a function that gives you high resolution data about your real time body experiences. And it also serves to remember words, muscle memory, like playing guitar chords, and to remember stories and repeat stories as part of your sort of construction of self. So it correlates with all those things. And when you ask NI people to SI something, they have varying degrees of capacity to do it. If you ask them to really give me the boring ass details of your shopping trip, well, first I got the pasta, and then I went over the cereal, and then I realized, oh shit, I forgot the pasta sauce, then I had to go back to the pasta, I also got the pasta sauce. If they can do that, I mean, it's like, ESTP might be able to do that, but wouldn't stick to it very long. Yeah, I mean, SI is the practice function. So, I will linking back to the story of, which is, it's funny, I've watched periodically these videos called like Best Gifts number 62. It's got like 30 minutes of shorts from various sources of little things that are funny or whatever. Anyhow, I saw one of them. It was what Rachel and I experienced that one day at Subway when we went to Subway and we got somebody who was new, and was clearly either an INFP or an INTP, and did not know how to move their hands properly to make a sandwich. Like, they like took the bread and they had to open it, right? Instead of opening it in any kind of sensible way, they like took both their hands and went, meh, and like smushed it all down, and then they like grabbed the meat and they're just like, ugh. Like, it's just so incompetent and making a sandwich is ridiculous. It was insane to watch. Anyway, the point is, how do introverted, how do SE polar people overcome the fact that they're SE polar? That they've got no native sense of how much force to use to open a sandwich, how much force to use to put down meat on a sandwich, right? They've got no native sense of it. Well, the way they get around it is practice, because repetition provides muscle memory, among other kinds of memory. So the answer to how do INTPs, INFPs actually accomplish things? Well, they put it on a schedule that they keep track of, and there's some external pressures that are compelling them to adhere to that schedule. It requires no self-discipline, and it requires no follow through on your own. It always involves another person or a concrete needed piece that you have to provide in time, or else the thing won't go forward, or something like that, some kind of external pressure, or else the SE polar will just get the SI third to keep remembering, but never actually follow through in doing it, because there's nothing beyond just their own memory of willing that they do it to make them do it. SE polar equals clumsy. Well, they're not necessarily going to look clumsy walking through the world. They're clumsy at any new thing that involves using physical force in their hands and stuff, right? So I remember one time I visited an INTP in Colorado on my cross-country trip, and I had brought some power tools to make some crafts and stuff, and he immediately broke one of my power tools, then lost a piece to another one. I was just like, okay. And when you saw him with the power tool in his hand, he looked like all like, oh. It's when Susie was riding bicycle with me in Laverne, she was riding Kim's bike, which had a slightly bent wheel, and the struggle that she had handling that fact was astonishing to watch, and the complaining about it and such. Let's see. Just going on the old chatteroo. Carl Jung thought we have 3 chapters in our lives. The people in their first chapter of life will not SI as well as one in the 3rd chapter of life, experience and nurturing their nature life hacks. Well, in some sense that's totally backwards though, right? Because what's definitely the case for an SI person like me is that I remember way better stuff that I learned or was familiarized with in childhood and teenage years than stuff that I learned or was familiarized with later than that. So in that regard, the long-term SI is best in the first stage of your life. I think what Carl Jung is simply saying there is, if you develop as a person in a positive direction, no matter what type you are, you're going to have some growth from experience. Least so if you're ENTJ or ENFJ, but even they will learn some things from experience. Do you have an experience you've had with Spacey where he showed terrible SE? Yeah. Yeah, I could think of probably a couple, but I mean, you have to tell an INTP, come on now, let's practice it one more time. But I got it last time. Yeah, you practiced it 3 times and you got it memorized amazingly, but that's not good enough, you know. Boba, Boba Fett also has a friend named Corey. Can that be practiced? Not really. I mean, not if you're polar, any more than my FI can be practiced. I can be a better map reader. I can be a better map maker, which means I can do a better job of accounting for the reality of FI that I don't really pay attention via or to. But I can't really practice feeling more or less or better or smarter or something. It doesn't even make any sense to me to suggest that. I mean, it just seems I don't even know what I'm saying, right? So, the same thing is true of FE if you're polar. You can have what appears to other people to be a better relationship with it. You can have what you perceive yourself to be either a better or worse relationship with it. I can tell you that I've typed and or talked with people who seem very shell shocked from having been FE polar their whole life and probably being stuck in an environment that was quite ontologically assaultive to that. And I've seen FE polar people who seem completely undinged by it, as though perhaps their environment didn't require any FE. I think in that regard, to the extent that particular experience is going to be impactful, it's going to be impactful in making it in only one way, really. It's like the only thing you can really do is make it harder for a person to authentically love themselves or not. You know? And if you are making it harder for a person to authentically love themselves, then you are doing one of two things or both. You're doing this thing where you're constantly picking out behaviors that are problematic, but not drawing any general rules. So there's no okay, well, here's where the water leak is. I'll fix it up here and then I won't have these water problems down here, right? There's no possibility for that. It's just a continual series of specific behaviors that have specific things wrong with them you're being critiqued about. And no capacity to level up to deal with it, right? Or they tell you they do the opposite. They say instead of ever critiquing your behaviors, they always tell you what's wrong with you, and that any behavior that if they think you were awkward, that behavior seemed awkward, they'll always say, "God, you're so awkward." And then maybe articulate the behavior, right? But those are the two ways that people mostly get ontologically assaulted. Is either somebody's unaware and their frame bias may be started off as even like well-intentioned and well-meaning, a parent is trying to do the best, Maybe even it stays that way. Sometimes maybe it slips into passive aggressiveness. Like eventually the person just kind of gets a sick pleasure out of nitpicking the other person and complaining about every little thing because they just don't like their cognitive function stack, basically. But, it's like if people love each other authentically, those cognitive function disagreements aren't ultimately significant. Because it's like my dad and I are not well suited to be close at all. I don't know how to connect with him. I don't know how to. I don't. I don't. He's very difficult man to make happy, right? Like he's fine the way he is. He's happy the way he is. And he wants. I can tell it's like he wants to spend more time with me, but never on based on what I suggest we do. So I don't know. He's very touchy about any kind of like maybe we should watch this thing together or something. He feels like it's an invasion on his planning or scheduling, but at the same time, then when he feels like coming out and chatting, I'm often in the middle of something, and I don't know. The point is, we're typologically just snafu, right? But it doesn't matter because we understand that we're family. I don't know. I guess it's an FI thing. I don't know. My brain's breaking now, so it must be an FI thing. What is it when you talk with a particular person but you get teary-eyed for no reason? That's not going to really happen to me when I talk with a particular person so much as when I talk about a particular person. I can't think of talking with any particular people that make me teary-eyed. Not that I can think of. Small insertion teams. Just to let you know ahead of time, darling, I do bring a small insertion team. So, hopefully that's fine. ODAs. That's operationally deficient asswipes. Full CIA involvement. A hotline to the Oval Office. And you know what's cool about hotlines to the Oval Office? They're always red landline phones with the old circle dials. It's required by international law. It makes you Confucius, huh? Well, that should empower you to work at the fortune cookie company then. I don't mean a sad story. I mean like they'll ask me questions and I'll realize I'm getting teary-eyed. Well, I think of ENFPs in particular as the type that always look like they're about to cry about something. But I can be a big crybaby too. Well, I think that's how subtle Dick Brazenballs describes his manhood. He says, "Look, I just prefer to run a small insertion team. It's more efficient that way." My balls, on the other hand, like a couple of Tsar Bombas. You know, I could set those things down on your face, anywhere on your face, and you would suffocate if I did not move them. But you know, if you are the kind of lady who, after my small insertion team has done its work and my brazen balls have blown the shit out of your country, you still feel you need some nation building, well, I can invite my friend Crotchley Grand Pole over. He's known to have quite the grand pole. And if you want to get a little scissor action in, I will additionally call up Misty Meat Flaps. Yeah, you want that? The full package? Okay. And that'll be $4.70. I know. It's a great deal. It's a great deal. You get Subtle Dick Brazen Balls. You get Crotchley Grand Pole. You get Misty Meat Flaps. And if you do want to pay an additional shipping and handling fee, we can toss in there. What was his name? Puberty Groin Jostle? Something like that. Puberty Groin Jostle. You know, you come around and jostle your groins. Please, just out of respect for me, please, this time, don't jostle my groin. In general, please keep the jostlers away from the crotch region. I like my crotch like I like my bus rides. Unjostled. Well, I mean, it's only $4.70. If you pay the extra shipping and handling, it comes out to $6.72. It's still a really good deal. That's with the addition of puberty groin jostles. So you don't have to get the free puberty groin jostles. It's actually $2 and some cents, but still, I'm going to guarantee right now you're going to go, wow, that $6.72 went a long way. And a short way. And a jostling way. And a meat flappy way. Long, tall Sally, let it ride, let it ride. Long, tall Sally. Well, there are 3 monthly payments of $40,000 each. Did I forget to mention those? How am I right now? How do I feel right now? How do I feel, like, emotionally? Well, let's see. How do I feel emotionally? Okay, let's see. How do I feel emotionally? Let me just feel my emotions. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to tell. It's like I come up with a lot of words that I think of. It's hyphenated, Winston's mom. Okay, his dad's surname was Groin, and his mom's surname was Jostles. No, I don't think I was closing my eyes. I was just looking down at the floor. I'm not sure where to look for my emotions exactly, because the thing is, I can come up with words that express emotions that like I could be feeling. So when asked the question of how do I feel, first I find myself looking for something that I don't know what I'm looking for exactly. And so then I think, well, what are some examples of emotions that you do know? Well, you've felt sad or guilty about this in the not too distant past. Maybe you feel guilty. Well, you felt pretty happy about that thing. Maybe you feel happy. So it's like, that's, but then I think, well, those are just what I would be feeling if I were thinking about that thing right now. But I'm not thinking about that thing right now, so how do I know what I'm feeling? How could anybody even tell? It's like, the problem is where do you look, you know? That's the problem. Is what exactly am I looking for? I know when I have a strong feeling, I'll recognize that feeling. But I've always tended to view those things as anomalous deviations from a standard of not feeling things. Now I recognize that's not actually the case. Despite the fact that it might seem that way to me, I think it's true that everybody's kind of feeling something all the time. You know, like, well, I mean, put it this way. It's true that I'm not feeling like Razzmatazz Ecstasy Man right now. Where, like, I'm at the beginning of a cycle and I'm pumped up from just getting back from driving somewhere with listening to some good music. I'm feeling cool. I'm ready to engage in some zazzy banter or whatever. I'm not in that mood. But I'm also not... I'm not in a meow mood. A meow mood is when nothing seems interesting or fun, I guess. So it's like I know I am feeling various. I know I feel differently at different times. I do have different moods. But if I'm not in a dramatically notable mood, like, fuck yeah, right now I'm feeling like it's roll time, baby, let's go. As I do certain times. And I'm not feeling like, meh, everything's hard and frustrating and awful and meh. It's okay, those ones I notice. I'm not feeling angry like that person who said that thing, and I'm not feeling until I think about it anyway. I'm not feeling like sad about like my parents, but I do generally feel kind of sad about my dad for very complicated reasons, and I generally sense the kind of guilt about forgetting about my mom all the time because she's off in the nursing home. You feel things, but you're not aware of them. Is that bipolar? Well, I mean, I'm aware of them. The thing is, you got to think about it. It's kind of simpler to explain than we all think in a way. It's I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. It's impossible for me to tell you what I'm going to do later if it's discretionary. I can tell you what I'm going to do at 3:30. I'm going to type that lady. I got to stay up till then so I can type her. I am getting tired. I can tell you the SI stuff. I'm definitely running out of gas, but I probably got plenty of gas to get me through this thing. Which is to say, I'm not like having trouble keeping my eyes open. So, it'll be fine. Yeah, I would suggest possibly ISTPs do make the best soldiers. But I wouldn't discount your ESTJs either. Stupid cloggy ball. Think of the time I made you mad and see where it comes from. Well, I mean, I've actually been thinking about that some. Peter didn't teach you. Why did that make me so mad the other day? And why do you in general tend to make me mad? I think the reason is you you habitually try to eliminate the potentiating part of things, which is who I am. So it's like you want to cut out or cut past the part where we lay out the possibilities. If you feel committed to one of those, but that's it. I experience that as um, direct invalidation of me. I had an interesting conversation with Horse Mumbler today, talking about some personal stuff, but not of his, not of mine. But I guess I could just say this about it anyway, which is that my takeaway was if you're an INTP and you are trying to function in an environment that is not patient with communication, that doesn't want to afford you time to explain and explicate out all your thoughts and ideas, then you will find that environment very ontologically assaulted. Now, the same is true for ENTPs to a lesser extent, and to me to an even lesser extent, because I'm pretty practiced at being concise, being quick, direct, getting what I need to say said. INTPs can be very tangential and roundabout and prologue-y, etc. But regardless, I still need some space to do that potentiating. And I think you have a tendency to push back at spots that are more it's like you're pushing back on framework where you, you need to be pushing back on contention level, basically. Like, okay, a given framework issue is resolved in the sense that, at the very least, you've articulated something. I've articulated what framework that implies. You've either negated that or agreed with it or whatever. It's out on the flow is the point. And so then at that point we need to deal with the contention level arguments and then try to link it back to framework. But you want to bypass that contention level segment. And I guess it infuriates me so much because I view that as the part that makes you a responsible person versus an irresponsible person with language, you know. And I view that as interference with a grand dialectic. It's important, but I guess I don't know. We certainly do have the capacity to piss me off. I mean, of course, it's important to remember also, sometimes the people who piss us off in the world, the reason it doesn't link to our cognitive functions or anything, but just simply to their bad behavior. Sometimes it's that. So I'm not trying to say that in this instance one way or the other, but I'm just pointing out that it is not the case that every time I'm made mad, there's a cognitive explanation, cognitive function conflict explanation. Usually, the explanation is much simpler. It's, why are you mad at Joe? Because Joe fucked up in a way that pissed me off. You know, it's pretty straightforward, usually. Because it's, okay, so this is what I'm talking about, Peter Dentici. You are operating in a world of extremely low ambiguity tolerance. I'm operating in a world of continual, constant ambiguity maintenance. So, in other words, when I explore potential explanations, no matter how convincing they might sound to me, I'm not committing to any of them. I'm sustaining them all independently in my head and affording them varying degrees of likelihood or probability or weight or whatever. So, what you were doing was not protecting me from the wrong explanation, but preventing me from determining the correct explanation. And basically saying, no, Eric, you can't figure this out yourself based on actual data. I need to excise some of what might be implied by that data with unsubstantiated intuition. But that's very insulting. Peter Dentici. Okay, now, this is going to be an interesting test. So there was one thing that you claimed that I kept hammering on. and made a lot of very good arguments as to why it was a really bad thing for you to do, for you to claim. What was that thing that you claimed? Do you remember at all? Did you listen to anything I said? Like, see, so this sort of thing, well, why am I getting mad at Peter? I mean, a much better question is, no, what started our conflict definitely was a claim that you made. Do you remember what it was? That okay, so right. And was that in fact not the claim that was in conflict for the entire time? Yes, it was the claim. So the entire argument was me negating a claim you affirmed. And yet, at 2:03 a.m., Peter Dentici states, I never made any claims. Even though the entire argument was over a central resolution comprising a claim you made. So, why am I angry? Because are you doing this on purpose? Okay, well, if it had been said in rushing, how would it have been said differently? If it had been said in special teams, would I have agreed with it? What do you mean? It was said in passing. I mean, this is the sort of thing that makes me mad. Okay, yeah, but the context of this conversation is that argument. The entirety of that argument was about a claim you made. So, at any point in the discussion of this argument, for you to say the sentence, I never made any claims, is naturally going to make any sane person annoyed, right? I mean, no person who's not completely batshit crazy is not going to find that frustrating. So in this case, why do I get mad at Peter and Dentici? Is it a cognitive function thing? No, it's because, I mean, better to ask the question, why are you acting like this? That'd be a much better question to ask. You elaborated on the context of your memory. I mean, that's the point. We're talking about a fight that was entirely about a claim you made. So there's no gray area here. There's no elaborating. There's no context. It's like me dropping nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and going, what? I never killed any Japanese. What are you talking about? What about the ones from the bomb you dropped? Oh, well, let me elaborate a little bit on the context. When I said I didn't kill any Japanese, what I meant is I didn't personally up close kill them. Okay. Alright, fine. I get it now. That's what you meant. You can see why I get angry. No, it was definitely why the argument began. It was, yes, it was the entire reason for the argument, because I was trying to voice out the possible additional explanation, the respective advantages sort of intuitively of these two things, but was unable to complete my sentence because Peter Dentici basically said, no, you couldn't possibly have done that, so don't bother completing that sentence. That's exactly how it started. And then we spent a lot of time arguing about whether or not he could know whether I had done it. And we looked into the issue, or discussed at least briefly, the issue of whether or not the kind he was talking about could be synthesized in a lab. It was a little bit of a pull. It wasn't something that anybody seemed to really want to answer. I mean, not anybody, but Peter didn't want to answer, which is, can it be? Is it sometimes in stars? Yeah, it is. Okay. We've gone over all this stuff. The point is, all those things are linked to the same central core point, which is, was he equipped to know what he claimed to know? And the question is especially weighty because he used what he claimed to know to subvert and prevent me from successfully voicing out their respective ideas that were possible by saying they were impossible, even though he had no reason to believe that. So, I mean, it's not just using language wrong, it's the metaphysical equivalent of me pushing you out of the way to get to the drinking fountain. And making a claim, well, I'm thirsty. So, that's why I get mad. It's because it's not civilized behavior to push someone out of the way to get to the drinking fountain. Yeah, absolutely, I'm Moxie, and I made this case very clear in a video that I explained what was wrong specifically about what Peter Dentici was doing. It's absolutely the case that if Peter Dentici actually had what would be called a prima facie argument, that it would be appropriate to say, let's not go any further, you can't meet your basic burden to affirm. So, for example, if I have a client and I'm a lawyer, my client's been accused of robbing the Rouse nearby, but I have security footage of him hundreds of miles away at the time of the robbery, and stubs for a toll booth and a bunch of other physical evidence that proves he definitely was not there, could not possibly have been him. Then what you've done is you said, okay, here, Judge, we don't need to hear the prosecution's case. The prosecution did not even get to make a case, because they have failed to meet their prima facie burden because I proved my client factually innocent. They have not established that it's even possible for him to have committed the crime. Of course, the thing is, when that occurs, then great. There's no point in chasing down already dead possibilities, thinking they're still alive, right? But that's why one needs to be responsible with making those kind of prima facie claims. Because what you're saying is, no, we don't need to hear anything that you have to say about this. because of this determining factor. Sometimes that's the case, but you better be right, and you better be strong, and you better actually have evidence, and you better actually have good reasons for that. Because that kind of affirmative negation is a way to eliminate meaningful discourse if it's abused, or, as in this case, completely underwarranted. Like, you need to have strong warrants to try to make that kind of argument, not weak warrants. And he had the weakest of all possible warrants, which was his intuition about my DMT experiences based on some of multiple occasions, but only a few of multiple occasions in which I did DMT, and based on the words I used to talk about the experience after the fact, which are not adequate warrants. So for all those reasons, I mean, yeah, it matters a lot, right? It's the same thing, like I was saying. It's like pushing someone out of the way to get to the drinking fountain. It's not civilized. And you know how angry the savages make me. I shake my fist and I say, oh, those darn savages. I'm going to go give them Bic lighters. They're a lot more convenient than rubbing sticks together. Right, well, wasn't it the case that, like, Hitler was super sure the Allies weren't going to hit Omaha Beach? He was super sure they were going to go up there, remember? Very, very unlikely that they're going to go down there. Well, guess what? They went down there to those other beaches. Sword, Juneau, Omaha. They didn't go up there to the place where Hitler expected them to go. Because the Allies put out a smokescreen of misinformation. But there were still plenty of Germans to fight, don't worry. If you were worried that you missed out on World War II, it wasn't that fun. What is it a link to? Is it boobs? Is it BEWBS? Okay. Well, if it's boobs, maybe I'll look at it. Let me see. It better be boobs. If it's some thinker you respect saying some bullshit, I'm going to be really annoyed. Dr. Jake, stupid face. Dr. Jake, stupid face explains how drugs are magic. Is that what it is, Peter and DG? Is it Dr. Jake, stupid face explains how drugs are magic? Is that the title of this video? I hope not. Oy, 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 I hope not. Oh my god. Look at this shit. Listen to this. What are the differences? We go over the 9 lenses already discussed in qualia computing and add 3 more, starting with 3 new lenses. A. Global coherence versus competing clusters of coherence. 5-MeO gives rise to a global coherent state, whereas DMT gives rise to an ecosystem of time loops, each trying to capture as much of your attention as possible, which in turn results in coalition building and evolution of patterns in the direction of being very attention-grabbing. Oh boy. (5-MeO DMT gives rise to a global coherent state, the so-called unified energy field, whereas regular DMT gives rise to an ecosystem of time loops, each trying to capture as much of your attention as possible. Okay, so let's tackle this whereas DMT gives rise to sentence first, okay? DMT does not give rise to an ecosystem of time loops. No, it does not. If it did, it would not be possible for those time loops to try to capture as much of your attention as possible, since they wouldn't have any agency. This, therefore, naturally, could not possibly result in coalition building and evolution of patterns. Who would the two agents be building a coalition? And then, in the direction of being attention grabbing. So, are these two cooperating agents who build coalitions to evolve patterns are doing so for the purpose of getting your attention? This is what you want me to watch. All you gotta do is start with A there to know this guy is completely talking out of his magical ass. None of those words mean anything. This makes me angry. You can see why this would make anybody angry. Those aren't meaningful statements to make. What the fuck do you think an ecosystem of time loops is? The DMT causes. Have you lived this before, Peter and Tichi? Is this one of the ecosystem of time loops that was generated by your last DMT trips? You keep living it over and over and over again? Is that what's going on here? Do you see why this makes me angry? Anybody should be able to see why this makes me angry, right? It's complete fucking word salad bullshit. Means nothing. Absolute nonsense. So, why does that make me angry? I mean, for the same reason that, like, a 6-year-old running out onto a soccer field throwing a bunch of random soccer balls around makes somebody angry. Because we're busy trying to do things here. Learn things, understand things better. And you're like, how about this bucket of stupid ass mud? That doesn't help. That is not helpful. For fuck's sake. Mud doesn't help clarify things. God, that's offensive writing. I mean, whoever wrote that is a fucking moron who deserves to be shamed beyond all recognition of shaming. Ecosystem of time loops. Presenting it as though it's like science-y or philosophy or something. Oh my god. So, I'll be going out to vomit blood for a while, then I'll need to take a shower. And maybe when I get back, I'll cease being so angry at that incredible, insane stupidity. In other words, me no likey. In case that wasn't clear. Me no likey. Not okay. Well, at least I got a good example of bullshit. Okay. Do you have any key phrases you can point out that are guaranteed to link to bullshit? Yeah, if something claims to create a ecosystem of time loops, just toss that right out the window. Okay, that's gobbledygook talk. I guess what makes me mad is it's like the imitation philosophy. It's like alchemy, right? We have real magic potions. It's called chemistry. Right? And yet we got people out there who claim to be witches, who mix random shit together, say a few words, and it's alchemy. Fine, harmless, no problem. Not a problem. Why? Because they're just playing pretend with themselves. Then we got philosophy and that fucking bullshit. The problem is discourse needs to be purposed. I mean, the problem is discourse is much more contagious than more concrete forms of stupidity. And much more damaging. Like, the fact that you link that, you are watching exactly the wrong kind of video. It is reinforcing this pretend land that you're in here. It's not healthy, it's not good to pretend all this weird shit about drugs. You gotta keep them at the right distance from you, you know? I understand that it's tricky to integrate drugs into one's ontology. Like, what exactly is my relationship with it? If it's going to be positive, don't I need to just sort of articulate some positivities? Don't I need to create some purpose or magic behind it or something that gives it a greater meaning than just me liking to get high, right? But it's ultimately a way of being dishonest with yourself. Because that's not what drugs are or ever have done for anybody. There has never been a single person that I've ever encountered who said that psychedelic drugs help them to understand things better that I found to be a person who understood things well at all. If anything, the statement, I did these psychedelics and they really helped me understand things, seems to correlate strongly with that person understanding things very poorly. Like, you definitely don't want to follow the leadership of anybody who's telling you, like, and then when you finally get to the breakthrough level, then you really understand. That I will tell you right now how to spot snake oil salesman. And that's an important skill to learn in life. You know, that shit's all bullshit. You cannot, it's just, oh my God. I remember, you know, here's another time I got super mad at something like this. Was that one time this ENFP guy sent me, or I got sent by David Sanderson maybe, this ENFP guy's like philosophy paper that was all gobbledygook like that. And it was absolutely fucking infuriating because it's like, okay, you guys don't seem to get. I see what you're doing here. You've got hammers, you've got pitchforks, and you're banging at this engine of this car. Are you aware that we mechanics actually do a job that requires skills? You have to figure it out, and it's not easy. Just banging at things randomly is you're not being mechanics. Do you know this? It's like that's what I wanted to tell the guy. Because, of course, he thinks he's doing philosophy of some sort, and yet he's doing zero of the work of actual thinking, discourse, reason, dialectic, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it was so appalling. I just wanted to, well, I just thought hopefully someday there will be an equivalent benchmark I can point to. I don't know, maybe somebody named Dieter Pentici or something will say something stupid about drugs, or I don't know, something like that maybe. And sure enough, there it is. Magic happens every day. Well, as we've discussed, Rain, many times in the past, if you want to talk about what objective means, we start with how people use the word, and they use it in a few different ways. So, objective can literally mean of the object, which is to say, the color black is an objective quality of the slider in the sense that it's of the object, not my opinion about the object or something, right? But people will also use it to refer to data. Like, that's objective data means it's data that can be accessed by all parties equally and is not, nobody has special privileged access to. That's objective data. Then people talk about people being objective or subjective. In that case, they mean they're either using an interested or disinterested calculus. Although people who sometimes don't know that's what they mean, and they think they mean the person's either being empirical or not empirical, But regardless, the interested or disinterested calculus is one with TI polar people. It's hard to convince them that it's even possible sometimes to be disinterested by something. You've got to give them a really concrete example, like a referee of a basketball game, calling it fairly versus fans of the team maybe wanting to favor their team, and then they kind of get the concept of it, But the third factor to consider when talking about objectivity and subjectivity is you have to consider from whose perspective. So my subjective data is objective enough to me, right? In other words, the subjective data of the fact that I burned my middle finger a little bit right now, it's a little teeny bit hurty from when I tried to push down this bowl when it was still hot. That's subjective data, but it's objective to me because I have access to the data. I have unrestricted access to the data. It's not objective data in general because it doesn't meet the criterion of everybody has equal access to it. It's subjective data. But I can make objectively true statements about it. That's to say, it's true of the object. Namely, in this instance, the tip of my middle finger that hurts a little bit. When we try to calculate statuses of things, which is say when we do deliberative work or talk about philosophy stuff or try to figure out cognitive functions or whatever, we're always trying to maximally attain precision without sacrificing meaning. So meaning links somewhat to concision in terms of individuals' experiences of meaning. So words may objectively mean something, but concision, in other words, NI, in action and words, is what determines how or whether that meaning is heard. It is the advantage that ENTPs, ENFPs potentially have over INTPs, INFPs. We can at least learn to do, and we certainly don't countervalue, concision. So, Rain asks, Eric, what's an example of getting mad at oneself for failing an NI6? Well, probably it would be you realized that you said too much and your point was lost by the person you were talking to. That you should have stopped talking then, but you kept going. That was a rough quote from the philosophy paper I was talking about. Where? Objective is that which exists outside of human experience. Yeah, it's like, what the hell is that definition, right? He had like one definition that he actually had definition. It wasn't a definition, and it's just like, okay. But when I got mad at that, I responded to it well in the sense that I was able to do kind of a side-by-side thing where this is his thing. This is what I'm working on. This is what it looks like when you're doing a good job. This is what garbage fucking gobbledygook looks like. I don't know, there's something offensive about somebody at that end of the Dunning-Kruger part, you know, like where they know so little about a thing that they don't know that they're completely incompetent at it, because it implies that they have no capacity to respect the effort or difficulty that goes into actually doing it well, you know? Yeah, I don't remember the specifics of it either, but it was a mess. And it's like, I get it kind of, because, you know, I remember when I was first starting playing in a rock band, beginning of Puppy Buzz, we were, I am sure, objectively terrible, but I was able to subjectively focus on the parts that were promising, good, getting better, that I liked, positive arguments, you know, ever the unjustified optimist. But if you stay the unjustified optimist long enough and keep operating as though, eventually you actually get pretty good at what you're doing. So, I mean, I don't think that type 7 stuff, Peter, and you. I think what you're talking about is SIFI epistemology versus NITI epistemologies. So, for example, any FI is less capable of recognizing when their own shit stinks than any TI, which is less capable of recognizing when its own shit stinks than, say, NIFE, right? So, it's, that's actually a cognitive function thing. Can you give an example of a claim that isn't falsifiable? Sure. Melons are delicious. You can't falsify that statement. No, but we're talking about knowing accurately or inaccurately whether your own baby creation is good or not, okay? The aesthetic issue of whether or not it's good is an NI matter, not an SI matter. So, you're wrong, is the point. And I don't want to argue with you anymore because for obvious reasons. You're like the Jolly Rancher in the mouth of a live streamer. A bad idea from the outset. Sometimes sweet and delicious, but mostly annoying. I mean, Peter, I've heard you attribute everything from cow's testicles to neutron stars to a Negrum type. It has a limited amount of impact on affect. Now, if you try to encroach on cognitive function territory, then you're making what's at best an approximate mushy half-assed version of something that's much more clear. So, let's not do that. Double L-A-B. Double L-A-B-T. Double O-F. Turn it around, and what do you get? You get football. Football. Hooray. Football. That's what you get. A wonderful world of football. Yeah, and it's like, if you want to talk about something that's really going to bug an ENTP a lot, or an INTP a lot, is this objectivity subjectivity issue. So, it's very clear the different ways that people use the words and what they mean when they use them in these different ways. And if you're going to make some sort of claim like TI is subjective, at least be willing to point to the one of those ways of using it that you're using. You get people who refuse to define it in any of those ways or any other way and still maintain that it's subjective. Then you start getting into frustrating territory, right? Because they're not letting anybody do any work with words. So, So whether or not you're right or wrong about music being good is an enneagram thing? I mean, come on, dude. Now you're just being silly. Uh-huh. All right. Things sure would be a lot more convenient if everything were enneagram, says Peter Dentici, because he doesn't really like me and doesn't like the way I see things. But you know what I say to that, Peter Dentici? I think you're full of Finch cheese, which is a kind of cheese made out of finch knees, which are a kind of bird that lives and flies and goes in the trees, sees? Not the kind of cheese you'd want to eat with me, please. What we need is a party in here. And what we need is a party in here with lots of dancing girls, drugs, music, and some beer. A place of fluff. No serious stuff. It's party time. Peter Dentici. Always come in here and try to make me mad at thee because you say stupidly things just to make me peed off, which stands for pissed off, which stands for angry or mad or not happy or glad. Because I'm sad, because Peter Dentici once again comes and says some random shit that makes me feel dumb about even listening in the first place. Because why did you make me watch that, see that, say that, hear that? What are you talking about? These words make no sense. They're just shouting their noises and meows and bleh. I'm gonna have to go poo now. Thanks a lot, Peter Dentici. You're like a laxative. That's why. Well, what we need is a party in here with a lot of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Fill the place up, all up with fluff. It's a party, don't want no serious stuff. Well, what we need is a party up in here with a lot of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Fill the place up, all up with fluff, because I don't want any of your serious stuff, yeah. Well, what we need is a party in here with a lot of dancing girls, drugs, music, and beer. Go ahead, fill the place up with fluff, because I don't want to hear no serious stuff. Your enneagram theories are like my knees. They are aging and really not very healthy, because they don't explain why I have three. I don't have three, I only have two. I also have two elbows, and you too have two eyes, two ears, and a nose. What we both know is your nose don't know that your enneagram theories are gonna go poo. No, you are wrong. And I rapped it in a song, so you know it's true. Once I rap for you that you're wrong, then there's no disputing it. The issue has been decided at that point. Okay, so I guess I'm going to quit the stream now, and that'll give me enough time to rub one out before this upcoming taping session. Yes, I can, Host Eric, break down rubbing one out into exactly 5 steps. Step 1, into the stream. Step 2, into the stream in the OBS, making sure the camera's turned off. Step 3, open an incognito browser. Step 4, search for teens getting or something. Or step 5, open a bunch of different possible videos in a bunch of different tabs. And that's how you masturbate. Isn't that good? I'm not engaging with Peter in honest good faith. I am mad at him. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I am being mean to Peter. Maybe I'm being unfair to him. But it's not like he's ever fair to me. The shit he says all the time. It's crazy. It pisses me off. So maybe he should change. Maybe I am being unfair, but I'm always trying to be fair, and he doesn't seem to be interested in being fair to me. So maybe you should scold him. I mean, I don't think he was dealing with me in good faith when he said he didn't make any claims, right? Or was he? Was he dealing with me in good faith when he said that he actually... I mean, what could he possibly have been thinking when he said that, given that we were talking about the same event? Yes, that's how I go incognito mode, exactly. It's me costumed as Hitler. That way nobody will recognize me. Who's that? Oh, it's just Adolf Hitler. No point in engaging him further. We know who he is. He's the only guy in the world who still has that mustache. Nobody has that mustache anymore. Adolf Hitler killed that mustache. That's, the Holocaust wasn't just all those dead people. It also included that mustache. Yeah, the TE. That was like an SI thing. TESI thing. One of the high points of my life, Sky Gear. One of the high points of my life. When I finally got to burn Sky Gear. Yeah, I was high-fiving myself the whole rest of the day. Woo! Woo! You got to burn Sky Gear. And he's a fancy math guy. Woo! You're so smart, Eric. All day long, motherfucker. Let me tell you. Okay, well, that was, yeah. I don't think that other time, though, I'm not saying anything that's going to cause any problems in this one. Peter and Tichi, I'm sorry I've been so angry and mean and harsh with you. Jonathan Basanti made me feel guilty. So now I'm angry at Jonathan Basanti instead. What you gotta go make me feel guilty for, Jonathan Basanti? Asshole. I'm angry at you now. Are you glad you traded? Now maybe you're not so glad you traded. No, Jonathan, because I wasn't claiming it was the case. I was claiming it wasn't necessarily not the case, which is a very small scope of claim. Whereas Peter was claiming it necessarily was not the case, which is a very huge scope of claim. Well, I mean, like, okay. Like, what am I supposed to do with what you just said, right? So I believe you're engaging me fairly, and yet what you just said here indicates that you're not understanding how unfair you're being, right? The claim that he made, you discredited by asserting that he lacked knowledge sufficient to justify the claim, when I myself had enough knowledge to justify my claim, which was extremely limited in scope. So, what am I supposed to do with that paragraph? The broader the claim you make, the more actual knowledge you need to have to substantiate it. If your claim is, we don't know for sure that I didn't do it, that's an easy claim to substantiate. All I have to do is show opportunity, means, and motive. I was highly motivated. There were drugs in front of me. And the circumstances were such that if somebody was going to have that, it would have been that guy. That's more than me, my burden for the claim I was making. So it's like, okay, now am I dealing with you unfairly? Because I find that paragraph pisses me off too. Can I expect you to use words? Because who's being unfair there, right? You're being unfair to me. Because I actually could justify my claim and he totally couldn't. There's no comparison. So it's like, what the fuck do I do with that? I don't know what to do with that. I wish I didn't take it out on Peter and TG specifically so much. I feel like I'm picking on him. He has a unique ability to piss me off. I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe he gained some mind control powers from doing drugs. Is that what it is? Are you mind controlling me, Peter and TG? Are you Jedi mind ricking me? Are you Jedi mind rickrolling me? Maybe. No, Jonathan Basanti, of course not. Of course you don't do that. So, if someone makes a claim and you dispute it, you're saying, name that tune in 4 notes. And if you can't name it in 4 notes, you don't then go generate further opportunities for him to name it in 4 notes and say, oh, he did it. Right? The point isn't whether or not the claim turns out to be accurate. The point is that what he did was prevent the necessary ideation in that status quo in which the issue was not determined and in fact could not be determined. The claims he's making, there's no way to research those further. They're all claims about my subjective experience. They're not claims. He said it could be synthesized and sometimes was. So that's the only thing that could potentially falsify this possibility. So it remains possible, which is the only thing I was claiming ever in the first place anyway. I mean, I could independently research the thing and discover independently that I do have good warrants to think it's impossible, and it would still be the case that he was very much wrong to assert that it was impossible, because even if it turns out he's right, because it doesn't matter what the ultimate status is. It matters whether you can justify what you're saying right then, especially when what you're saying right then is fundamentally process killing, right? No, I'm saying, given the fact that none of us knew for sure in the moment enough to absolutely falsify the possibility that he was inadequately justified in preventing me from getting out the following statements. So, if it were the case that Rachel had smoked that 5-MeO, that would explain, that would have a different explanation as to why the previous instance of smoking DMT did not do that harm to her, but that instance did. It would still be in competition with my existing explanation and other possible explanations that might come into being. The point is, my goal was to voice that. Note, it's not making any claims about anything. It's making conditional statements about what something would mean were it the case. But I was prevented from making those conditional statements even on the grounds that there was sufficient cause to render the condition upon which the consequent was dependent categorically impossible, and therefore no reason to do the ideation at all. But that was categorically false. So it's like, it's not that he argued it sloppy, it's that he was absolutely wrong, right? Because he was making the claim not just that I hadn't done it, but actively interrupting what I was saying to shut down my ideating out those conditional possibilities on the grounds that he was so certain that I hadn't done it that we could throw out the case before it even saw the jury. So remember, you got to keep all that in mind. It's not a matter of whether he's arguing sloppily or not. It's a matter of whether he's ontologically assaulting me, right? If you've got a good reason to stop me from considering the various possibilities and lining them up and stating them so that I can feel as though I know them, I feel I know things best when I can state them out loud. If you're going to prevent me from even doing that, you better be fucking right. Which means justified, not turn out correct factually in some regard, because that may change ultimately, you know? Justifications are cut and dry. You either have them or you don't. That's not open to any interpretation or anything. It's black and white. Anyway, so I may be treating him unfairly in the sense that it may seem like I'm picking on him, but to the extent that you're echoing his same way of thinking, then you're going to get exactly the same kind of response from me, which is no, 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 no. It is never the case that it turns out factually that he was right, okay? It is the case sometimes that arguments affirming what he was affirming turn out to defeat the existing arguments that are negating it. So in other words, the winning negation doesn't get to hold permanent winning status. Nothing does, right? Some later affirmation might defeat it. That's necessarily the case. That doesn't change the reality of what actually happened discursively in that context. And we have to interpret it as such. So anyway, I hope you guys are listening to all that, because people who think that I'm being mad at Peter because he's arguing sloppy are, it's like saying, that the problem with genocide is it's inefficient human relations or something. It's no, that's not how it works. You're getting the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart, or the tree before the forest, or the forest before the tree, or the cart before the tree, or the forest before the horse. I don't know. One of those things. Regardless, I'm done. I'm done, and I'm increasingly edging towards meow. Not meow, but meow. Now don't. Listen to my words. Hear them. Know the truth and wonder of their glory. Respect the reality that they convey. Accept it as the one true reality for you. And that's when the cult began.